Let me congratulate you on holding this session and Danny for helping, for organizing it. There have been a confluence of factors that have led many countries around the world, even including the United States, which was one of the opponents of industrial policy, telling other countries they should not engage in it, even as in a hidden way they continue to do it within the military. A confluence of factors has led to industrial policies, or sometimes called industrial strategies or economic strategies formulated by government, taking center stage. Those factors include the financial crisis, showing that markets didn't work very well, the pandemic, the climate crisis, the inequality crisis. The pandemic exposed the lack of resilience, as did the war in Ukraine. We've seen a systemic short-sightedness, inattention to risk, evidenced most strikingly in Europe, where Germany made itself very dependent on Russian gas. I wrote in my book in 2006, Making Globalization Work, I wrote that it was extraordinarily foolish and short-sighted for Germany to have done that. And we are now seeing the consequences. So the bottom line out of all of this is markets on their own don't suffice. There are systematic market failures, and the bottom line is governments can improve matters through government-designed economic strategy. My own work, innovation economics in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, exposed the large numbers of market failures, which are in part the subject of necessitating government action. And that work was reinforced by my work for the World Bank, supported by the Japanese government in the project, the East Asia Miracle Project, at the end of the 80s and early 90s. It was interesting that while Japan wanted others to understand what were the basis of the success of the East Asian countries, the greatest success in development ever, there was opposition from many in the advanced countries, many people in the World Bank, because did not want an alternative to the Washington Consensus, which was based on a misunderstanding of market economics. Well, the interesting thing is that industrial policies have not been discredited by experience, by theory. They've been discredited by ideology. The kind of argument that one of my predecessors as chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors is attributed to have said, it doesn't make any difference whether a country makes potato chips or computer chips, illustrates the hostility towards industrial policies, and a view that today is widely rejected. In the short time I have available, and I want to stick to, there is a PAC program, I want to make four brief points. The first echoes what Danny mentioned. All countries have an industrial policy. It's just that some countries don't know it. The United States had an industrial policy supporting, for instance, an expansion of derivatives. We also had an industrial policy that was embedded in the Defense Department. We also had, in a way, an industrial policy that encouraged deindustrialization with all the consequences that we've now been experiencing. The basic point is that policy, expenditures, taxes, all shape the economy. And it's better to be conscious of how everything the government does helps shape the economy to have a democratic discussion about where the economy and the society is going. The second point is, as we think about what should be driving economic strategies or industrial policies, we should keep in mind two things. What are our social objectives and what are the market failures? Right now, at the head of the list that should be driving our current economic strategies and industrial policies are concerns about climate change, equality, resilience, and recognizing that borders do matter. In the decades following World War II, we created a view that we should be working, striving for a borderless world. And economic policy was often based on the notion that we were about to achieve that kind of borderless world. But beginning with President Trump, we began to realize that borders do matter. The vaccine nationalism that was exhibited, unfortunately, by many countries, including the United States in the midst of the pandemic, shows again that borders do matter. And now, as we face a food crisis, and many countries are putting on export restraints, again, we're seeing that borders do matter. There are a large number of market failures, which have to be at the center of industrial policies. The failures in capital markets are key aspect that was emphasized by Mazzucato in her book, Entrepreneurial State. Another aspect of market failure, which is important, is the widespread discrimination, both race and gender, that marks many societies. And that brings me to the third point I want to emphasize. The design of the programs of the industrial policies has to be focused around doing double, triple duty. We have limited resources, limited instruments, and we have to make sure the instruments and the expenditures address as many of the social objectives as we can. So one of the things that has pleased me as the United States government and Biden administration has begun to talk about, discuss, think about industrial policies is that they're thinking about how they can make those policies also advance concerns about discrimination, equality, and hopefully the green transition. The fourth, I want to spend just a minute on the concerns that Danny raised at the end of his remarks about the opposition to industrial policies is not based on economics, even though it comes from economists. It is based really more on politics, on the political economy, and concerns about imperfections of information. The first point on that I want to make is that government has made a difference. It's made a difference in the United States. For instance, in the 19th century, our industrial policy was appropriate to our economy at the time, an expansion of agriculture, increasing productivity of agriculture through agricultural extension services. In the 20th century, it was focused around DARPA, the internet, and the East Asia Miracle Project that I talked about before in East Asia showed, I think, unambiguously that government industrial policies made a difference there. So the fact is that governments can make a very big difference. And that is even true given the political economic concerns that Danny raised and the imperfections of information that are inherent. So that leads us to the question of the design of institutions that reduce the likelihood of these failures. And there are many aspects of this. In the 45 seconds I have left, let me mention just a few. One of the distinctions, sources of success of East Asia, I think, was a focus on access to credit versus giving away free money. Part of that, for instance, is ensuring that those receiving support give the government the warrants so that people participate in the upside as well as the downside. Transparency, peer review, engaging civil society, all of these are instruments by which we can mitigate the downside risk, political economy risks that are talked about. In short, I think we've learned a great deal about how to make industrial strategies work, and work not just for the special interest, but for our society more broadly. And I think this is a wonderful opportunity we have to try to see how we can advance that agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Joe, and also for sticking to 10 minutes. I hope you will stick around and participate in the rest as much of our discussion as much as you can. The way we organized this event is actually by having now two sessions in sequence. One where we will have two policymakers make some brief remarks with discussion and comments by academics, followed by another session where two academics will make introductory remarks with comments from policymakers. So let's just move on immediately to the first of those sessions. We will have Mr. Hirohide Hirai, who is Director General of the Economic and Industrial Policy Bureau of METI, followed by Ms. Donna Leong, who is the Director of Analysis at the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy of the UK. And they will each have 10 minutes for their comments, and then I'll introduce the academic discussants after their comments.